So, on Saturday, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, who, as we know, are two independent MPs, with John McDonnell having the Labour Party whip suspended last July for voting to scrap the two-child benefit cap, and Jeremy Corbyn, who was kicked out of the Labour Party and successfully ran as an independent in the last election, were due to be interviewed on Saturday by the police after attending the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign protest. So, what happened? Well, if you are the Met Police, they said officers were holding the line at the top of Whitehall to stop any groups marching, which would be a breach of the conditions despite their efforts. A large group was forced its way through and are in Trafalgar Square. More officers are being deployed. And then they said later that day, 77 people were arrested at today's protest. There was a coordinated effort led by the protest organisers to march out of Whitehall in a clear breach of the conditions. An investigation into those offences has been launched. Well, it was reported by the media that Jeremy Corbyn and McDonnell were amongst the people who breached the protest conditions and pushed past through to Trafalgar Square. They weren't immediately arrested at the time. Well, that's it. End of the story, right? Bad Corbyn, bad McDonnell, and nothing else to see here. Well, not quite, because Jeremy Corbyn posted later in the evening on X saying that this is not an accurate description of the events at all. I was part of a delegation of speakers who wished to peacefully carry and lay flowers in memory of children in Gaza who have been killed. This was facilitated by the police. We did not force our way through. When we reached Trafalgar Square, we informed the police that we would go no further, lay down flowers, and disperse. At that point, the chief steward, Chris Nynham, was arrested. We then turned back and dispersed. I urged the police to release all body cam footage and retract its misleading account of events. Now, there are multiple videos floating around social media with the clips that include clips with Corbyn, with the police saying to move back, and the crowd does keep on walking. But using language like forces their way through seems a tad aggressive when you actually look at these multiple clips floating around social media. There's not like a rush of people, there's no aggression towards the police. It's just a crowd of very slow walking people. However, until the police release the body cam footage of the discussions that Corbyn has called for, which why wouldn't they? We won't be able to know exactly what happened. But it's worth noting that the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign has a very strong record of having peaceful protests. So they were very confused, as we covered last week, that when the Met tried to originally deny this protest from ever happening, because the protest was planned to start at the BBC in protest of their coverage of the reporting of Gaza. And because the protest passed by a synagogue on the Jewish holy day of Shabbat, which, by the way, happens every Saturday, the Met Police tried to stop the protest from ever happening. Now, there are no reported incidents at the synagogues related to this campaign group, and as we also said last week, they've already carried out protests that passed by the same synagogue in the past, and there's never been any issues. So why deny the protest now? So this protest in the past Saturday was changed to a static protest, meaning it starts and basically just stops pretty much in the same place. There have also been multiple reports from users of social media of the poor behavior from the police, even before the protest even started, poor communication from the police, and just really poor organization. And just lots of inconsistency between different conversations that people have had with one group of police officers and then the other. So, Curtis, we were actually there towards the end after your appearance on GB News on Saturday. Did you see very forceful protesters?
Mhm. Well, no, I didn't, but of course, I do have to mention that we got out the studio and we wanted to go to the Women's March straight away, and then off the back of that, try and get to the Palestine March. It's London though, so we were delayed and delayed, and by the time we got to the Women's March, it kind of dispersed, and of course, the Palestine March dispersed too. But here's the main thing, Lewis. This all started before the march on Saturday. I was watching Ben Jamal, the Palestine the Palestine Solidarity Campaign coordinator. He went on Navarra Media and he spoke about how there were obstacles from the police from the get-go. And essentially, the Metropolitan Police were trying to move the goalposts. They were saying, okay, well, you can't go to this part of London. And they said, well, we go to this part of London all the time. They said, okay, well, what about this part of London? They said, well, you can't do that because there's going to be cars there. Then they said, oh, well, you can't do this part because it's going to be busy. And Ben Jamal turned around and said, well, these marches, that one, they obviously always disrupt. It's going to be busy because it's a Saturday, but you're not given these kind of stipulations. on any other march. And then, of course, there was the sort of row between the Palestine Solidarity Campaign and the police, in terms of the synagogue, as you mentioned. Now, there are multiple examples of marches going. I mean, we say it's past the synagogue, it's still not that close to it. There's no issue. But the police deems it an issue because it was a Palestine Solidarity March, which intrinsically is trying to kind of say that standing up for Palestinians is anti Semitic without kind of saying it. Now, we also know, because Ben Jamal said it and we see it on social media, that the Board of Deputies coordinated with the Metropolitan Police, and clearly they had the police's ear, because afterwards, when the police basically made it difficult for the solidarity campaign, the Board of Deputies on Twitter literally said, "Oh, we want to thank the police for their coordination." Now, I think is absolutely undemocratic, and it is also a huge contradiction when you're essentially giving more protest rights to one group over the other. And the Board of Deputies, which, by the way, isn't just a representative example of Jewish people. It is an institution, and it is a pretty much Zionist institution, so it doesn't represent all Jews of the country. You essentially have them who are fairly powerful versus ordinary people who want to march. And that is why we're seeing the sort of headlines come out from Saturday. That is why we're seeing all the issues come out from Saturday, because it was kind of planned from the beginning. There was always going to be some sort of scandal. Now, of course, the media reporting on it has been nothing but disgusting, saying that people broke through near a synagogue, once again trying to create a false narrative that those who turn up to Palestine marches are anti-Semitic. That's why the numbers are high, because it's fueled by hate, not fueled by solidarity. When in fact the march was nowhere near the synagogue. The fact that the synagogue was even brought up is absolutely disgraceful. They shouldn't have linked it because, again, they were so far away. And of course, there's video footage of officers allowing people to go through. And then suddenly the report is people broke through the barriers. So it is once again a complete smear campaign of ordinary people standing up for Palestinians. Now, I've been to Palestine marches before. I've been to some in Leeds. I've been to one in London. At Preston. I mean, I would say technically in London too. And what you'll find on these marches are ordinary people from all different faiths, all different races, young and old, and it's amazing to see. It's really amazing to see.
I actually remember when we were actually walking to go and get some food, as there were people in Trafalgar Square, we can't deny that. And obviously, if they knew that was a breach of the conditions, then, it's not great. However, while I saw people walking through and walking past Trafalgar Square, I saw multiple people going around and handing food to people, handing out water and drinks. I personally, again, we weren't there for the entire time. We're not going to say, oh, we were there for 5 minutes, so of course it was peaceful. But I didn't see anything that was particularly disruptive. And I feel like I don't know, go ahead and put this as an aggressive thing, constantly shaping this story around the synagogue was quite frustrating, because I remember reading on my phone any news that was coming out, and there was an article from LBC, and it popped up on my, I got a notification. It was like, oh, protesters arrested today with controversial protest in their synagogue or something along those lines. So at this point, we didn't actually really know that loads and loads of people have been arrested. We heard that there was a few arrests. I clicked into the article, and obviously they talked about the synagogue in the title, and I was reading through it, and I was like, wait, there's been literally no incidents related to the synagogue. Why is LBC putting their headline, which I'm sorry, we all know, unfortunately, not everybody's always got time to read a full article. When people see that, they're going to think Palestine protest incident at a synagogue. And that's all they're going to, that's what 99% of people are going to see. And it's ridiculous that they covered it, they made the article in that way, because you read through the entire article, there's not a single incident in the synagogue. They don't even mention the synagogue again in the entire article, other than to reference that there was controversy about it being near a synagogue. And it's heavily frustrating, because when
You
you
all
go, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Lewis, but you also have to
Terrible.
mention the sorry, you Mike Parry today. That there are dozens and dozens, hundreds of Jewish people who turn up to these
Yes.
London rallies, who are anti-Zionist, who stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people as well. And Zach Polanski, who himself is Jewish, is being attacked. He's been attacked before for being a so-called self-hating Jew, and he's had to defend himself once again well, over the last couple of days by saying, well, I was at the march, I spoke at the march, I'm Jewish, and I support the Palestinian people. We also have to remember these guys too. So when the media sort of weaponize this and say, well, there was a synagogue nearby and there's something going on, they're obviously trying to say it's just basically Muslims on one side and Jewish people on the other side, and that's it. When it's not at all the case, but they want to essentially divide people by race and religion. Um, because that's what the media always do. It's their number one trick they do.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.